Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room. Then and now, I'm Greg Christ, of course, joined by none other than Frank Fear. Frank, welcome into the show. We'll have Mickey in here in just a moment, and our special guest as well. Really looking forward to that. And Frank, even though Saturday was a dismal day, we lived to tell about it.
Not very well, but we lived, Greg. I'll tell you what, getting ready for the show tonight, we've got some clips of Danny Kendra in the 75 Peach Bowl. We could have used him last week on those rollouts and that great pass to Scott McDonald, 50-yarder at the end that won that game. We're looking for a 50-yard pass, but you know what? We knew it was going to be a difficult transition, and it is, and yet Rich Rod's, as we always say, is the right guy at the right time in the right place. And so still a lot of work to do with all the injuries, and Utah coming up. It's a big game for them too, because they lost last week at home. And so we'll see what happens on Friday afternoon. Saturday afternoon, actually.
Yeah, I'm listening to Coach Rodriguez's press conference after the game. Obviously very disappointed, but reiterated the fact that this is a building process, and that's no excuse. The coaches didn't prepare well, et cetera. The coach speak these throws out there, but making sure we have to understand that there's 80 new players you're trying to blend together on a roster, and that's enough work in itself. And then you end up with several key injuries that you have to deal with, and then that throws it even into more of a flux. So. Yeah, it's going to take some time, and we just gotta hang with it. And if you look back at his first time around, his first year wasn't very pleasant either. I think we won 3 games his first year, and I remember, like I said, sitting up there watching him lose to Temple, and there's about 30,000 people in the stands, and it was a very dismal day and a dismal time. But it wasn't too many years after that. We're battling for possible national championship, so you just got to wait it out, keep supporting, hang in there with them, keep watching, keep rooting them on. They'll be fine in the long run. And, you could see even this year already what can happen from week to week. I mean, 2 weeks ago against Pitt, we were riding high and looked like a totally different ball team. And then come out Saturday and lay an egg. I mean, I really think that's just the way it's going to be. I think we're going to be up and down. Not saying we're going to win every other weekend, but I think Saturday's performance will be a whole lot better than what this past Saturday's was.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, and we say this each week, Greg. We're gonna see what we're gonna see, and it's very difficult to predict. I mean, we don't bet, but just looking at the line is up to Utah minus 13.5 again, and
Yeah.
so that pretty much doubled since it's opened. That's due to a lot of factors, but the fact of the matter is, we're just good. There are certain things we'll talk about later that we're going to have, obviously going to have to be stronger in, starting with the quarterback, the ability to run the ball and to throw the ball. And but as you're right, you just have to hang in there because it's a transition period.
Yeah. Yeah, and you talk about the things we got to work on. Of course, it's always the offensive line and the quarterback play. And, our starting center was injured Saturday, may or may not play this coming Saturday. Our starting quarterback is injured and getting tests done, may or may not play Saturday. So, yeah, again, that just, all those things combined together adds up to a 13.5 point underdog. So, Frank, one other thing I was wanting to mention, talk about all these new players before we got on the air. We were all talking about the transfer portal and the NIL and all those issues, and we've talked about it at great length. But I don't know if you noticed Saturday how many former Mountaineers were playing for other teams and contributing mightily. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but I mean, we lost some really good football players in that portal this past year. I don't think we really paid that much attention to it, but I know Saturday I probably saw at least 6 former Mountaineers starting for other teams, including our game, Kansas, with Latham back here at linebacker. So, that's tough to overcome.
Yeah, it is. And it's, as we were talking before the game, as you say, it's the name of the game, and so it puts a lot of pressure on coaches. You really don't know what to expect. Going forward, we may not have that second portal opening, which coaches rue and also hail. If they need players, they have a second chance. But the bottom line is that everything is so unpredictable. You just never know. And not only, and we've said this before, I'll say it again, it not only makes it difficult for us to really size up our team, but it makes it nearly impossible to size up other teams that you really can't study to the level that you want to, because their profiles change so significantly from one year to the next. So it makes it interesting in some way, but it makes it maddening in some ways, but maddening in other ways too.
Yeah. I heard a commentator today on one of the talk shows talking about that. They were talking about the rankings and the teams that look good, et cetera, et cetera. And so what's your take on it so far? And he said, we're 4 games in, and I don't know anything about a lot of these teams yet. He said most of the teams you just don't know yet. You can't tell if they're good or not. They beat, maybe won some games, but you don't know if the teams they were playing are very good. He said so it's going to take 7, 8, 9 games before we can really tell who are the good teams and who's not, just because they're all have so many new players. So everybody's struggling with it. But and we've said all along that I have a sense that from what I've watched that Ohio State might be pretty good, and Michigan might be pretty good, and Georgia might be pretty. I mean, it's just going to be the same teams because they have all the money, and Texas Tech is showing what money can do, and so I think if you follow the money, you can figure out who the good teams are going to be. But it's just hard to tell about anybody. You just don't know, the personnel and maybe good players, but are they going to gel together and you're going to have that chemistry and that sort of thing? In our case, are they going to be able to run the system that Coach Rodriguez likes to employ? Some of them are cut out for it, some of them are not. It's going to take time for him to get his type of players in there to do that. So you never know. There's all kind of factors that play into it now, which are all unknown, really, prior to them playing some games. You just can't tell. You can't go to practice and figure it out, and typically, you can tell fairly early on because your blue bloods, your dominant teams are dominating, and this year you just don't know. I mean, they're like us. They have one good game, one so-so game, so you really can't tell. Or they beat teams that you think are really good, and then you watch them play then a couple of weeks later and they're terrible. So are they really that good? So it's just hard to tell right now, and just tons of questions, and we're no different than a lot of other places, and you see the struggles with the already coaches starting to lose their jobs and that sort of thing. You see the struggles that other places are having as well.
That's right, and it's also tough for a coach to know what he really has. I mean, I won't mention the name, but I was looking at the Pro Football Focus evaluations, and there's one of our offensive linemen who's in the bottom, I'd say 7%. In fact, I have the numbers right here, ranked in the game so far, 300th out of 302 similar position linemen on the run, and 287 out of 302 for similarly positioned linemen on the pass, run blocking and pass blocking. And, Rodriguez wouldn't be playing that player if he thought that would be the performance. So it's a discovery for the coaches as well, even when they've done due diligence to get the players they want.
Yeah, and I think if you've noticed our lineups in the 4 games so far, they've a lot of different names you're seeing out there. Some of that's due to injury, but a lot of it I think is they're shuffling people around, trying to find folks that they feel like they can win with, and like you said, the coaches are scratching their heads too, trying to figure things out. And with 80 new players, it's you got to still be doing that. I mean, there's no way you can't doing that, especially probably 65 of those are players that he's never actually in person, got to see play or practice every day. And so, it's got to be a tremendous task I'm glad I'm not doing it. I'll just say that. I wouldn't want any part of it. And I think you see a lot of these older coaches have football, basketball. They're saying, we're done with this. We're not going through this. And, Nick Saban, for example, I think that's the biggest reason he got out is that he just didn't know how to deal with it, and, been doing it one way for 40 years. And then all of a sudden, all this money starts flying in and kids are asking how much you're paying me and that sort of thing. That's got to be a shocker to a lot of them. So, the ones that can adapt, will stick with it. But a lot of these older heads are saying goodbye to the profession just because of it. So yeah, it's got to be tough. I'll tell you that. Speaking of older heads, where's Mickey Plumley at? Is he here? There he is.
Hey, Greg, how you and Frank doing?
Hey, I'll
Good
say
to be with you guys.
Mickey might be a little older, but he's in a hell of a lot better shape than I'm in. I'll say that.
I'm not sure about that anymore. Hey, following up on the point that you just made, Greg, and you too, Frank, I think there's a lot of credence to the way things have changed and the difficulty for a head coach in today's environment compared to the way it was, back then. Money has so much to do with the success of the team that you're in. And we were chatting before the show started here. I think, the firing of Mike Van Gundy at Oklahoma State yesterday, I think is a perfect example of how things used to be versus how things are right now. I mean, here was a coach that was there for 20 seasons. He was a perennial contender in every team that he had. I think he had 12 double-digit winning seasons. I think he only had one losing season the whole year he was there. And within about an 18-month period to 24 months of NIL and transfer portal coming into play in big time, he ends up losing, 11 out of 12 games. And after what happened, at the beginning of this season, he gets canned all of a sudden. And it kind of just rubs me so much the wrong way. And I'm interested in Dan's opinion on this as well, because it didn't used to be the way it was, back then. It was the quality of the coach that you brought in. Everybody knew the game rules. Economics had nothing to do with the situation, maybe a little bit in terms of backdoor alumni donations, but not a whole lot of that. Certainly nothing like it is today. But things have just changed so dramatically. And to your point, Greg, when you said, if you want to see who you think's going to have the best team this year, just look who has the most money. And what a shame it is that college football has just gone to that sort of level.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the Gundy situation, one of the things he was so outspoken on last year was, we're not using the portal. We're developing our kids. We're going to develop our kids and do it the way it's supposed to be done, et cetera, et cetera. And that really hit a lot of people wrong because, this is a different era. It's a different time. And you've got to use that portal to be able to survive. And he pretty much refused to do that. And I think that was the big strike on him, maybe the final strike for him. And then losing the games, like to Tulsa, for example, those schools are pretty close together, Oklahoma State and Tulsa. And, to lose to them like they did, I think was, kind of like that's the window dressing we could use to get rid of him. But I really think the strike that got him was last year when he said, we're not using the portal. We're not doing that. And, again, these older guys that's done it a certain way for so long, it's got to be hard. I mean, it had to be hard on him, maybe even to accept the fact that you've got to get involved in NIL portal to have a chance. And, he was pretty stubborn about that. So, it's like you said, sad but true. It's a different time period. And, Oklahoma State won't have any trouble with the money part of it. They've got, billionaires backing them. So, for him not to do that, I think really led to his demise.
Yeah. Good points. You go back to the days in which I played in '67 through '69, and again, totally different situations. But when Jim Carlin came in, who uh, should be in the Coaches Hall of Fame, I think he's been nominated again this year. Our first year in '67, we only won 3 games. We went 3-5-2. And then the second year, we went 7-3. And in our senior year, we got to play in the same Peach Bowl that Danny Kendra got to play in. We ended up going 10-1, winning that bowl game. But that's the way college football used to be. You bring in a great set of coaches or a great head coach, and he picks a number of great assistants to help him out. And they were just as much interested in the development of the player as a young person and a young man about to enter society as they were their football skills. And just really disappointing from that vantage point to see how things are turned out today.
Yeah, if you look at talking about that, if you look at Coach Nealon's career at WVU, every fourth, fifth year they had a really good team. That '88 team that played in the national championship, their whole starting front line was fifth-year seniors. And then it'd tail off a little bit. 4 or 5 years later, they'd be good. So he was bringing them in, building them up, and competing. In that way, and you just can't. You're not going to see that anymore. You'd be. I don't know if you'll ever see. 5 offensive linemen that are fifth-year seniors on a team. I doubt very, very doubtful you're ever going to see that again. So anyway, we need to get on with this conversation with our guest. We're looking forward to having his perspective on all this. Darren, if you want to go ahead and bring him in, of course, and you can go ahead and put the graphic up as well. Everyone that's a Mountaineer fan my age and younger knows this person, remembers him playing. Of course, it is Dan Kendra, quarterback for WVU in the early 70s, and had a great career at WVU and a fun guy to watch play. I tell you that. I can remember, like I said, I'm younger. I'm usually the youngest guy on this show, and I am again tonight. That's why I like it so much. But I do remember him playing. And, the same thing I told Dwayne Woods, we had a local guy, Tommy Pridemore, that was up there and in that early 70 period, and we always listened and watched because of him, but we got to know all these guys. So, Dan, appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Welcome to the show.
Guys, my pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
I know you, one thing I want to ask for, and let these guys start talking to you. I know you mentioned your son helping you with a computer, being a computer whiz. He was a pretty good quarterback in his own right, but didn't go to WVU. I've been curious about that. I remember when it was all going down, how that transpired. And as far as you were concerned, I'm sure you had your druthers, but what was your feelings about whenever he was, preparing to go somewhere else?
Well, me and Danny came down to West Virginia on a visit, and Coach Nealon was there and things. And to be honest with you, I was hoping that he would go to West Virginia, but I said to him in the recruiting process, I said, you make your own decision, because I said, it's you. You're going to be in the classroom. You're going to be at practice. You're going to be in the environment. I said, you go what makes you happy, not what makes everybody else happy. So when he made that decision, the trip to West Virginia was a great trip. He visited a number of different places. And then, of course, going down to Florida State, having played for Coach Bowden, and then Coach Bowden being down there, Dave Van Hallinger. There was Chuck Amato, who was from our area in the eastern Pennsylvania, and right down the street in eastern Pennsylvania. He just kind of fell in love with Florida State, their gameplay. He was extremely mobile as a quarterback. Charlie Ward had won the Heisman Trophy, very similar. And Coach Bowden said, he goes, Danny, you're the bigger, stronger Charlie Ward, and just things kind of click. So in the recruiting process, as you go through it as a player, coaches are going to tell you what you want to hear. I mean, everybody knows that. They'll tell you what you want to hear just to get you on campus, but you got to trust people. I had the trust factor of knowing Coach Bowden, had playing for Coach Bowden. And then when Coach Bowden talked to us and spoke to Danny and myself and our family and things, you you felt good about that. And it was a good fit for him. It really was a good fit. West Virginia, I thought, was also an excellent fit. But again, like I say, he made his own decision, and you just live with that.
I can't imagine that. If you think about you're a young guy coming out of high school, and you go talk to Bobby Bowden. First of all, even if you didn't know who Bobby Bowden was, which I'm sure he knew who Bobby Bowden was as any sports person did, but if you didn't know who Bobby Bowden was, I can't imagine a 17, 18-year-old kid walking in and Bobby Bowden starts talking to you that he can't convince you to come play for him. I can't imagine him not being able to convince you.
Well, I'll tell you, the reason why I went to West Virginia was Bobby Bowden.
Yeah.
And again, going through the recruiting process myself, going down to West Virginia, talking to Coach. And back in the 1970s, the schools that were recruiting me, like, Notre Dame, Penn State, a lot of those schools, Michigan, throwing the football for them was throwing the football 6-7 times a game, and what caught my eye, I believe it was my junior, senior year. It was the year that Kerry Marbury ran back the opening kickoff against Penn State. The game was in Morgantown. It was on TV, and I saw Bernie Galiffa was the quarterback, and Danny Buggs was there, and Marshall Mills. And I watched them throwing the football and going, my Lord. I said, what school is this? And I saw the people, the passion the people had down at Old Mountaineer Field. And that was just a connect. When I said, because I wanted to throw the football when I went to college, and Coach Bowden, through the recruiting process, again, Coach Bowden was an unbelievable coach, but I honestly think he was a better man than a coach. He was just an outstanding man, and the trust factor was there. So what he said, I believed, and it came to pass.
That's awesome. Frank, you want to jump in? Been ignoring you there. If you want to hop in there and ask a question.
Well, I missed having a chance to see you play, Danny. I had just left West Virginia, but I followed it very closely, and that you played in about 40 games for the Mountaineers, and that 75 season was the best, 9-3, and you lost 2 games that year by a total of 3 points against Syracuse and that pesky Tulane team. We always seem to have had trouble with Tulane, but 3 points. But beat Cal, SMU, Virginia Tech, Pitt, lost to Penn State. That was the only game that got out of control. Let me cede my time to the video for people who haven't seen you. If you can cue that up, Darren, and then Danny can talk it. There's no sound in the video, so you can talk over it, but you're going to see yourself and buddies just really did a great job against North Carolina State. And there we go.
Oh boy, here we go.
There it is.
It's like a lifetime. It's funny. It's 50 years ago, and it seems like not that long ago. But that's Artie Owens with the football. Me and Artie are still close friends. Artie lives in the area. We see each other a lot. He was just an outstanding. I remember this play, Ray Marshall. That kind of changed things right there. That hit.
Yeah.
I mean, you see our sideline there. We were kind of like hanging around and things. Then we started to get our stuff together at Scotty McDonald making the catch. That's a blessing to have a target that big. And again, I laugh because Artie caught, I think, 4 or 5 balls in the Peach Bowl. And it kind of makes me laugh because receiver. And then when I was with LA, I was with the Rams. We went down and we scrimmaged. We drove down to San Diego. And here's Artie again. Yeah. Right before halftime this past, Artie makes the play. But San Diego drafted him as a receiver. When we went down to scrimmage, then I went in to get taped, and he goes, "That's the guy." He goes, "I'm a running back." He goes, "They drafted me as a quarterback." So he goes, "I blame you, Kendra, that they drafted me as a receiver." So he goes to this day. To this day, he holds that against me. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I should have been drafted as a running back, not a receiver." But that. These are fond memories. I'll tell you what. And like I said, it's like a lifetime. There's Tommy Bowden there making a play.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Ron, I'll tell you what. When you talk about the people on that team, I heard you guys mentioning consistency in offensive line. That was a great offensive line we had. We could run the football. We had great running backs. We had Artie. We had Dwayne Woods. There's Steve Lewis making a play. That was my boy, Steve Lewis. We used to train together all the time. And then here's just the play. They brought pressure, and Scotty just makes a heck of a catch here. And I'll tell you what, those long strides, thank God he got to the end zone. But, yeah, I mean, after that game, I remember that just being next to Coach Bowden and stuff and holding that trophy and things, it meant a lot to all of us. I think it meant a lot to Coach Bowden because the year prior to that, Coach Bowden was under a little bit of pressure. And the one thing I remember most about the offseason from my freshman and sophomore years, boy, our winter workouts in spring ball was just they put it on us. I mean, we were in the best shape of our lives. Everybody kind of made a commitment, but the coaches drove us. There's Tommy Pridemore. Pride was my roommate my freshman year. And then I switched over to Clay Singletary, became my center and things like that. We hooked up, but Pride was a heck of a football player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
boy.
That was great. I mean, you figure Ron Lee, Artie, Dwayne, all those guys. I mean, the offensive line, just in our defense was so consistent, with guys. I mean, they were a little concerned about the defense, and they ended up playing big through the season and had great games too. So you talk about a team that was a team. I mean, there were stars, but I remember Coach Bowden used to say that's amazing how much can be accomplished when no one cares who gets the credit. And that was kind of that football team kind of gelled. Being around football for, my God, 50 plus years, I've seen teams playing and coaching with a lot of talent, but there wasn't that camaraderie and things, and you just didn't perform to capability. Then I saw teams with maybe average ability that played for each other and became great football teams, and just seeing, like I say, that film right there and everything else, that was a complete football team. And it was basically a pleasure to be around those guys and being a Mountaineer and things and being part of it. And, watching the Pitt game a couple of weeks ago and things, I just thought I felt like driving down to Morgantown, after the Pitt game, just to be in there in that environment and things, because I'm sure it was crazy, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and what a lot of people.
Dan, a couple of things there.
I was just going to say, one of the things I had forgotten until I went back into the researcher tonight is the Mountaineers. You guys were ranked 10th in the country. You were in the top 10. Until, again, that pesky Tulane game. I think you lost by 2 in that game. And then back-to-back losses to Syracuse. And then with the Peach Bowl win, you got back into the top 25, ended up 20th in the country. But, that to be a top 10 team back then was a tremendous accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of concentration at top tier, Nebraska, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, you go on and on.
Yeah, and in those days, things like that, you said with the limited amount of bowl games back in those days, to get into a bowl game and participate, Mickey will say the same thing. Playing in the Peach Bowl and everything else in those times, that's a great accomplishment. Today, it seems like everybody who has a 500 record or sub 500 record, they're in some type of bowl game. So it seems like almost it's a money-making deal. Everybody across the country is in a bowl game. But to play in a bowl game back in those days was an accomplishment, to be involved. And then when you win, it's even better. And Coach Bowden prepared us. We practiced hard for that bowl game. We went down to Clemson and practiced, and we practiced hard. It wasn't just walkthroughs and things. We were prepared to play in that football game. And when you think about what you guys were saying earlier about teams, and so the two coaches involved in that game, Bobby Bowden and Lou Holtz, I mean, two legends of football. And then like our team itself, there's a number of players on that football team played in the NFL. So that was a great, a great time. And it's a shame, like I say, you just it's Coach Signetti was a great coach, but playing for Coach Bowden, I wish Coach Bowden could have stayed around a few more years, because when he went to Florida State, he actually said to me, because my father had passed away my junior year in high school, and he wrote my mother a beautiful letter saying, he goes, I don't know if Danny's going to come to West Virginia, but he goes, anytime you would need to talk to somebody, because I know you lost your daddy, he goes, just have it. He goes, here's my number. He can call me anytime he wants if he needs to talk to somebody. that meant the world to my mother. And again, like when he went down to Florida State, coming off a bowl win and things like that, you're thinking, I'm staying. But, there was that 15, 20, 30% thing in the back of my mind saying, should I go? Shouldn't I go? But then you're around your boys and you just stay, because it's not like today, like you guys were talking about transfer portholes and all these things. You jump ship and you don't think twice about it. You stay with your boys back in the day.
Early on after the video, one which you mentioned Tom Pridemore being your roommate. He's actually, we're from the same hometown. I'm from Anstead.
Anstead, there you go.
Got to watch Tom in high school. I was in middle school at the time, but man, we idolized Tom Pridemore. We thought he was the greatest thing ever. So that's why we paid so close attention to all the WVU games. And then we all became Atlanta Falcons fans after that. But the other thing you mentioned was, and I wanted to get this in there before I forgot. You mentioned you and Bobby Bowden with the trophy after the Peach Bowl. A friend of ours that watches the show every week has a tremendous collection of photographs, and he gets them autographed, and he has a Mountaineer man cave where he puts all these photographs. And he had asked me if I had a chance to ask you when you get over for your address. He has a picture of you and Coach Bowden holding the trophy. He has that picture and was wanting to get an autograph. So I told him I would check with you. And after the show's off, we'll get off the air. If you don't mind, we'll do that.
Not a problem.
Yeah, he'll send you the picture and return envelope with it. So
it's kind of funny, and I'm sure Mickey will attest to this. The older you get, still before football season, I'll get a number of things through the mail, that like Mountaineer people and things want autographs and so forth. Would you sign this picture? Would you sign that? And I said to my wife, I said, maybe I'm getting close. They know something I don't know. Am I dying that they want a picture or something like that, autograph picture? So I said, do they know something I don't know that they want an autograph? But I jokingly said, because of my son had such a great high school career, they went to Florida State, and he has the same name as me. So I said, I used to be Dan Kendra. Now I'm Dan Kendra's dad. Yeah. So when people talk about Dan Kendra, I'll be somewhere and they said, yeah, you went to Florida State. I said, no. I said, I went to West Virginia. And I said, I went to the good school, So.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I have to admit, I had to put in the Google search, I had to put in Dan Kendra Jr. To get where I needed to go, because I was reading a lot about Florida State. And
that's exactly what happens.
I know about him.
Yeah, it's exactly what happens. That's like I say, I'm Dan Kendra's dad. I wish I wouldn't have named him Dan Kendra. But you talk about seeing Coach Bowden after when his son was born in the Med Center down in Morgantown, and Coach Bowden and his wife, they were the first ones to see Danny besides myself. Wow. Awesome. And Mrs. Bowden runs the show. I know Coach Bowden's a great guy, but Mrs. Bowden ran the show, and she had balloons and everything else. And it was ironic that she wrote in that letter when he was born to the future WVU quarterback. And then when Danny was being recruited, we went down to Tallahassee for a game. We went in. There's a thing called, I think it's Bill's Bookstores, like where people go to get all the Florida State stuff, like shirts and all those things. Mrs. Bowden was in there, and it was crazy. She grabbed the microphone behind the cash register, and the place was packed with Florida State fans. And then she started. She goes, this is Danny Kendra's mommy and daddy. This boy's coming. He's the number one recruit in the nation. He's going to come down and be our future. And I'm going, my Lord, I'm talking about pressure. But I said, she kind of had it signed, sealed, and delivered already. But from birth, WVU quarterback to like when he was graduating high school as the number one recruit, she kind of saw it. Like she like a prophet pretty much,
Even though you played and obviously some high pressure games and in front of large crowds and that sort of thing. What was it like when your son was so good and had all these expectations, and you have to go and sit through the games? That I experienced that.
Playing is a heck of a lot easier than watching. I guarantee. And Mickey, again, you can. You're out on the field. That first contact and things like that. The butterflies are gone. Then you get involved in the game. When you're sitting in the stands, there's no outlet. You sit there and you're physically, there's no outlet, and it's tough to watch your son, at a high level. That's like when I see Archie Manning, having gone through watching his boys play and everything else. I'm going, I can't believe that dude's still alive watching all those games, because it's tough, just sitting there, because you want what's best for them, but you have no control over the situation, so it's like I said, I'd rather have played and been on the field than sat in the stands and watched.
Yeah, I understand that fully. I have two sons. One son played high school basketball for me. The other son, I'd quit coaching by the time he was in high school. He was a lot better basketball player, and going and watching him play was torture.
Oh, yeah.
And when my son was playing, I was coaching. I didn't get really wrapped up into that. It was, I was coaching. I wasn't sitting there watching. Like you said, you had an outlet. I'm sure after he made the decision to go down there, I'm sure that was a great relief for everybody in your family, but you still had to go watch him play. So, how big a difference was it from going to watch him in high school and going to watch him in college?
Well, the advantage, I coached at the school that he when he was in high school. I was coaching at Bethlehem Catholic High School where he played. So watching him progress and everything else like that. And again, you almost had, like I say, being on the field. You had input. He come off the field. You say, talking about what did you see coverage wise? Tell me what you're looking at. There's give and take, and you try to talk him through the game, much like I'm still coaching. And the same thing when the kid comes off the field, and I'll say, like, hey, first down, how many high safeties were there? You're talking to the kids, trying to keep them mentally locked into the game as much as physically performing in the game. So having been involved coaching him in high school, then, like I say, watching him go to college. And the Florida State coaching staff at that time was, they were like, that was the program at the time. So Coach Bowden was surrounded with the players with great coaches. So you trust, Mark Rick was the offensive coordinator. He became a great coach, a head coach. All the coaches down there, and this player after player after player played in the NFL. So that was a machine, much like Alabama became with Coach Saban down there then. And when you see that, and when you're going through something like that, when you're part of it, you don't appreciate what you have until it's gone. Now Florida State, had some struggles and things like that. It looks like they're kind of back on pace, but when Coach Bowden left, they kind of were still good, but then they went a little downtime. So that's like with West Virginia right now, with Coach Rod being there. I honestly think, like what you guys were saying earlier, he's a proven winner. He's going to find the right formula. I think he has a good coaching staff. Trick, the offensive line coach, he's a legend in himself. So I think they'll find the right formula. It takes some time, but all those new faces and things down there trying to create cohesiveness, and especially on the offensive line. Having been a quarterback, the offensive line's the game. I tell people, like, when they're watching a game, they always watch the ball. I have a tendency to watch the offensive line, how they're blocking, different types of protection, and the center, all those guys communication-wise, that's vital to the game. And there's so much going on the field that people have no clue what's going on, and only the coaches knowing things. So I think, like I said, Coach Rod's going to get things together. Give him a little bit of time. He's, like I said, he's a proven winner, and my money's on him. My money's on him that'll get things done. And it's a tough world right now, like you said, with the transfer portal and NIL and things. But he just always seems to find a way, which is the mark of a great coach.
Yep. Agreed. Frank, Vicky, one of you guys want to jump in?
Mickey, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Frank. You played high school in Allentown. Is that where you
yes.
raised or grew up in? Are you back at the same high school now? Can you tell us a little bit about how things have kind of gone full circle for you, if they have?
And that's exactly what's happened, Mickey. It's I went to Allentown Central Catholic High School, Allentown, Pennsylvania, obviously, and after West Virginia, I spent a couple of years on IR with the Rams, Los Angeles Rams. Then I had a short stint up in the Canadian Football League with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. After that, I came back and things started working, and a number of my friends were coaches and so forth and so on, and kind of said, would you be interested in coaching? And I got involved in coaching like in 1986 at Bethlehem Catholic High School, where my son ended up going. And I coached with a man named Bob Stem, who was a Syracuse graduate. He played on Syracuse national championship team as a center linebacker. And back in those days, when Bob Stem played back in like 1959, 1960, a lot of guys were two-way players. And Bob was at Syracuse, a center and a linebacker. And I coached with Stemmy at Bethlehem Catholic for 20 years. He retired, and I coached at Nazareth, about 2 or 3 different other high schools for a few years here and there. Nazareth High School, Northampton High School. And I was working as a medical rep with, like I mentioned, with my 2 sons, Jesse and Danny. We worked in operating rooms, working with doctors, providing different technologies for surgery. And after doing that for 13 years, I retired, and I couldn't stay in retirement. I mean, like I'd wake up in the morning and go to the gym, and then like I come home and walk my dog. A couple hours later, I walk my dog. After doing that for like a couple of months, the dog says, "Screw you, I'm not walking no more." So I kind of laughed because a friend of mine called me up and he goes, "Come coach it's Allentown Central Catholic." Timmy McGorry called me. He goes, "Come coach the quarterbacks." And I said, "That sounds good." So being around the kids again in the game, it was wonderful. Then Dan Dolphin, who was a baseball player at West Virginia. I don't know if you know Dan Dolphin or heard that name, but he was a baseball player, a pitcher at West Virginia, a very good baseball player. He passed away last year. In fact, just about a year ago last year. He was a physical education teacher at Allentown Central Catholic, and he retired. And the principal said, "Dan, to me, would you be interested?" I said, "Yeah." So it's not even like a job. I mean, being around the kids just keeps you young. We got a great bunch of kids. It's a smaller school, but it keeps you active and stuff. And it's not even like going to a job. It's just kind of fun being around the kids, and it's been a pleasure for like the last 4 years doing this. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at right now.
Well, kudos, Dan. There's nothing like going back to your hometown where you came from and paying it forward, paying it back to the townsfolk in the community that helped raise you when you were a young man. Congratulations on that. That's great.
It's a funny story that there's a wall of fame there, and there's a plaque there with your picture on and stuff. And the one kid in my class came walking, and he goes, "Mr. Kendra," he goes, "there's a guy on that wall up there. It has the same name as you. Do you know that guy?" and I said, "No." I said, "That guy died like 20 years ago." I said, "I get that a couple times," but I start laughing. And another kid goes, "That's him," But it's funny that the kid goes, "Do you know him?" I'm going, "Yeah." And I said, "No, man." I said, "That guy's gone." And sometimes the way my body feels, that guy is gone,
Just one last question for you, Dan, in the interest of time here. When you went to the Peach Bowl, did you play on Old Grant Field? That's the one that we played on. And do you have any bowl game trip stories that you can share with us?
Well,
with the general public?
We played at where the Atlanta Falcons played. I think it was called Fulton County
Stadium.
Yeah. So we played there, and it had rained the night prior too, so we got lucky. We got out there, and the field was a little mushy. If you watch the film, you'll see the sides especially. I think they had the field covered, but the sidelines were kind of mushy and things like that. The one funny story that I had, we were practicing at Clemson. I had just gotten married, and I never wore a ring before in my life. We went down to Clemson, and we were in their locker room and things. The first day of practice, I took the ring off, and I put it in a locker at Clemson. Never put it back on. And down at Atlanta and things, my wife was down there, and she goes, "Where's your ring?" I said, "Oh, my God." I said, "I think I left it up at Clemson." So West Virginia, somebody from West Virginia at admission, or they just called up there because Clemson was on their Christmas break. They went up there, they found the ring in the locker, they put it in an envelope and sent it back to Morgantown. So when we got back there, the ring was there. But
Great story.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking. Like I said, my wife would have probably divorced me on the spot, but that might not have been a bad thing. But so that was just like I remember after the game at the Hyatt Regency, all the Mountaineer fans there. It was insanity. It was insanity, and just the people were just so happy. It was just like a great experience, and something like I say, 50 years later, you just never forget those things because they're few and far between.
Hey, into that, brother. I'll tell you, it's interesting you say that. Our team stayed at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Atlanta, and they had the revolving restaurant up on the top of the place.
Yes.
Never forget that. And underground, a place called Underground Atlanta.
Yeah, we kind of found that
series. Well, you found Underground. I'm sure why you were there. Yeah, after our game was over, it was a night game. After it was over and we all showered and everything, Coach Carlin announced that he was leaving for Texas Tech, and then I believe it might have been Joel Hicks was the coach, and he said, "Men, you did a great job tonight. The airplane leaves at Hartsfield International Airport 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, and we'll see all of you there." It was the first night ever in a 4-year career we didn't have bed check. So they just turned us loose. We spent the night in Underground Atlanta, somehow made it to the airport to fly home the next morning.
We kind of had that same feeling. The one question I want to ask you, Mickey, and I told people this for the last 50 years, but I said, kids would ask me, what stadium, college or pro that you played in that you liked so much? I said, Old Mountaineer Field. I said, Old Mountaineer Field was special. I mean, so Mickey, I think you can attest to it. The crowd was the loudest crowd. You play in front of 50, 60, 70,000 people, but Old Mountaineer Field was just a unique environment. The people were so close to you. I think that was one of the best selling points when I went down there, and you see and you hear and you feel that field. There was nothing like it. And the new stadium was wonderful. I call it the new stadium. It's been around for a while. But Old Mountaineer Field was just a unique, special place that I think can never be duplicated. And I remember Coach Joe Paterno saying, somebody was asking him about a similar question. He's the best place to play is West Virginia, he said. He goes, the people are all over you, just all over you. And that is just you talk about the memories of there it is. There's Old Mountaineer Field.
There you go.
That place was,
I don't know if you can see that. Let me turn it around here a little bit. This is one of, I'm going the wrong direction. Yeah, let me douse this light here.
Yeah, that place, I'll tell you what.
Old Mountaineer Field. That's one of 750 prints of that stadium that's in existence.
Well, I just remember that Pitt game, my sophomore year when we beat them. I couldn't get myself to watch Bill McKenzie kick the field goal, but I just stared across the Pitt's people, their coaches, and I just saw them look, and they dropped their heads, and I said, "Oh my dear Lord!" And then the crowd, it was so loud, and I refused to jump on that pile because I'm thinking somebody's going to suffocate and die underneath that pile.
Oh yeah.
I mean, our experience there after working out in the summertime and just laying around, just BSing with each other, the players just laying around, and it was just such a great time in that place. Like I said, if there's a heaven, I hope there's a Mountaineer Field up there that you can just hang around in, And I know there's a heaven.
Great atmosphere there, and you're right. You felt so close to all the fans because they were literally right on top of you. You could hear individuals. We had one linebacker on the team by the name of Dave Ben. Shows up with all the reunions. He brings the '69 Peach Bowl helmet with him to our reunions. But his mom and his aunt would come to every game, and they brought cowbells with them. And every time Dave made a tackle, they'd start ringing those cowbells. And I'm telling you, you could hear them down on the field. That's how close it was.
I know, because I remember you sit on that bench and people pat you on the shoulder. And I'm saying sometimes it's great when you're doing well, but if you're not doing well, you never sat on the bench. You made sure you stayed away from it because God only knows what's going to happen, next to you. But they were right in your ear, and, like you say, you can hear everything. But the environment there was just unlike any other. And again, it didn't even sound like human beings anymore. It sounded like jet engines. I remember playing Boston College. The first play of the game, we hit a pass. We were walking down the field, and Ron Lee I could touch him. And I was yelling at the top of my lungs. He couldn't hear me. And I got face to face with him, still yelling. He goes, I can't hear you. I mean, face to face. That's how loud that field was. But just an unbelievably unique experience. Other teams said the same thing. They said, my Lord. They said, this don't even sound like people. It just sounds like a different sound. But just, I love that place. I mean, that place was just special.
Me too. Often thought about having my ashes spread on what's left over there. I think it's a little intramural field now that they've built.
Yeah,
Wouldn't mind having my ashes spread.
No, I said the same thing, but I like earlier. I said if there's heaven, I said I'm just going to ask Jesus one day. Say, hey, just redo Mountaineer Field right here. Let me just walk around it a little bit, you know.
There you go.
Because before my freshman year, Joe Pendry said, "Just come." I wanted to come down a little early just to be down there, and he put me up in the visitors' locker room. It's like I was in a bunk in the visitors' locker room with like two other guys. And we just go in it'd be like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. I just go out in the field, have a football, just throw it, just throw it and chase around and visualize myself doing stuff on that field. And then, like I said, by the grace of God, like, you know, it kind of came true. You know, I got to play there and had some great games and some good experiences there. But
great memories.
Me and Artie always talk about all the time. Me and Artie talk about it. Yeah.
Great memories, no doubt about it.
Yes, sir.
Greg may be on mute there. I think. Yeah, Greg's going to have to adjust. Those are great stories, Danny. I'll tell you. My face hurts. I've been smiling so much. Actually, I've got a photo right behind me. You can't see it there, but it's my office was in Old Forestry, right across from the old stadium, and I have a photo taken in 1970 at night from Old Forestry, which was on the corner, Stewart Street, looking over the stadium at night, and it's something that I really cherish. And so I understand, Mickey, that photo you had. Great experiences there. Well, Greg, are you back with your audio? Yeah, you're okay now.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm trying to use this phone, and everything is so much smaller.
Yeah.
And, it's not that my eyes are not any good, but everything's so little I can't see my mute button, and I hit it because my dog started barking, and then I couldn't figure out how to get it back on. Anyway, I was just going to say when he was talking about Mountaineer Field, my first experience ever going to a Mountaineer game was at Mountaineer Field, and I think it was probably 74, 75, somewhere in that time frame. I know I was in middle school, and we got to see a game in Old Mountaineer Field. That was the only game I saw there. And then as I got older and had season tickets to WVU, I was at the opening game in 1980 at the new stadium, and I remember distinctly the different sound. That's the first thing that caught my attention was how different it sounded. Even though there were twice as many people at the new stadium, the old stadium was so much louder. It was just a different type of sound. And I know people may not understand that, but if you experience it, you would understand it. And it was a loud place.
Yeah, I had friends who played at Penn State, close friends, and they said, man, he goes, coming down to your joint, he goes, it's insane.
Yeah.
He goes, you know, it's just insanity. He goes, we like doing it, but he goes, my God, he goes, coming on the field, he goes, that student section, he goes, it's safer on the field than being next to those students, he said.
That's right.
Yeah, it was a little different back then. It wasn't. Now I heard the Pitt quarterback talking about them preparing to have batteries and beer cans and stuff thrown at them. I'm like, I've never really seen anybody do that. I did see a trash can thrown one time.
Yeah, just like you say, it was an act of God. Nobody knows where it came from.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely was different. And so I'm guessing then you were the first Mountaineer quarterback I got to see in person. That's pretty awesome. But I know those are great memories for you, and it's so fun to hear, your love for the university and the Mountaineers, and I know you still watch today, and I'm just curious. You've already talked about Coach Rod. You feel confident that he's going to build the program back. When you watch our team play now, and obviously you see the differences in players and size and speed and all that type of thing. But when you watch our team, kind of what's your thoughts about our program right now? What are you thinking about it?
Well, I think the toughest thing to do is because he brought so many people into the transfer portal. Again, even if they came in last spring and things, and just creating that, just getting to know your personnel and creating that cohesiveness on both sides of the football and special teams. I think that takes time, and my hope is that the guys stay in the program for 2 and 3 years, because anymore it seems like what you were talking about, there's Mountaineers on other schools. You're watching TV and there's Mountaineers all over the country right now. You just hope that we keep guys here in our program. So, we get what the best out of them. And it's a concern, they have a great year. Next thing you know, they're going and they're looking for that NIL situation. And you can't blame kids to do it. You just can't blame kids. Right. They've kind of created a monster and they don't know how to pull back on it right now. Yeah. So that's the thing that kind of hurts. But I think, like I said, Coach Rod, he has ways about him. He always has, always will. And I think, like I say, he'll find ways to keep these guys around, these talented guys, and create a winning program again. I think we're going to head in the right direction. I really do.
Well, one of the things we talk about, and of course, all of us talked about it before we came on the air tonight. Our audience hadn't got a chance to hear your take on it, but we talked about the NIL transfer portal and the shape of college football right now. Where do you see college football headed? What do you think is going to happen or has to happen?
Well, I think with Coach Saban, especially, you see Coach Saban now, if you watched him over the last year or so when he's not coaching and he's on that kickoff show, he's got a sour taste in his mouth, because I spoke with a guy who was on his staff for a long time, and I said, Coach Saban's out of the picture. He goes, Danny, he goes, Coach Saban. He goes, he wanted to go into your house and sit down and talk to you about Alabama football, the program, the state, the chance to play at the next level, all those types of things. And the first thing out of people's mouth was, how much can you pay us? Yeah. And that just, a guy like Coach Saban just don't want no part of it. So until things change, and they got to make some changes, because you're creating a monopoly from, like you say, a handful of schools, and it's just not. College sports can't be like that. I think college sports got to be more competitive and more. So they got to make the transfer portal. They got to make some changes. I honestly think to save college football that people love so much. And I don't know how they're going to do it, when they're going to do it, but they got to do it soon. So it's kind of getting out of hand now. But how much more out of hand can it get? Yeah. When you got guys after 2 or 3 games, they don't like what's going on. They go in the transfer portal. It's kind of silly.
Yeah, I've been a big proponent of maybe a salary cap and divisionalize it like the NFL model is. To get a cap on this so that the big money schools can't just buy their championships every year, and that's what's going to happen. I mean, it's becoming more apparent every day. You follow the money trail, you see who the good teams are, and that's not good for the sport, I don't think. The fans in certain schools will love it, but the majority of the country won't. So hopefully they will get it reined in. Now, one thing we do is, we're running short on time here, as I see. We always like to, and I'm going to bring Frank back in. We always like to talk about the upcoming game this week and give our thoughts on that, and then we give a score prediction. And Danny, if you don't win the score prediction contest, then Mickey comes and spends 2 weeks with you at your house and eats all your food. And
I'll tell you what, I hope you like walking dogs in the woods, because that's what you're going to be doing.
I'm just kidding about the Mickey part. So anyway, Frank, if you want to jump back in and get this started, we'll do that.
That's great. Well, as I said in the at the beginning of the show, this is a big game for Utah.
Yeah.
Darren, if you can throw up the Utah profile, we could look at some names. We already talked about the fact that they're a big favorite, and we're playing at home, so that's worth 5 points usually. So it's 13.5. But, it's just, I feel the same way I did last week against Kansas. I look at that line and then I look at the stats and I go, wait, quarterback, a dual guy again. Dampier, he's also the leading rusher. Yep. But you look at those numbers, they don't frighten you. They beat UCLA, which is arguably the worst team in the Big Ten. Right. Cal Poly, which is a great academic school, friend of mine is president out there, but football, they've never been strong, at least not recently. I mean, John Madden went there, so that's their claim to fame. Wyoming, so-so in the Mountain West, and then they lost last week to Texas Tech by 24 points. And so those teams they played so far are 4-7 collectively on the year. But they're balanced, 32nd in the country in total offense, 6 yards per play. You can see West Virginia is number 62. And they're 33rd nationally in total defense at 4.9 yards per play giving up. And WVU is 51 at 4.7. So on both sides, not surprisingly, they're better than WVU, but WVU's hanging in there on both of those. And the thing that stuck out to me as I was looking at the national stats from NCAA is their third down conversion, 61%. So if they get, if it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 2 out of 3 times they're making a first down. That contrasts significantly with West Virginia. We're converting 27%. We're ranked toward the bottom. I think there are only 150 schools that the NCAA looks at. So, but they're a big favorite on Saturday. So I'll kick it back to you, and we can go through the points of the game, what we consider, and then the scores. And I'll keep notes here. And then, by the way, Greg, you won again last week, so you have us. You've won 2 in a row. Mickey and I have won each. So let's see what we do this week.
Frank, talking about Utah, I've watched them a couple of their games, and it's not a team that jumps out at you as being a great team. You don't look at them and go, "Wow, they're good." But when you watch them, they're just solid. They're not flashy. You don't see a big deficiency with them. Although Texas Tech handled them okay, you just don't see glaring issues with them. And I think looking from our perspective, we see some issues with our team, and that worries me a whole lot. I thought after the Pitt game, well, we've made strides. Our offensive line's coming together. We ran the ball very effectively. Defense played pretty well. But that dual threat quarterback scares you. We have problems with that, obviously. And, I worry more about our offense than anything. Utah, like Kansas, we talked about how much yardage and so forth their defense had given up, but not against us. And so it worries you about our offense. You also throw in the fact that, our starting center got hurt last week. Our quarterback apparently was hurt and has been hurt the whole season. We didn't know about with a foot problem. And then Ty Edwards, of course, didn't play last week. They don't know about this week yet. They haven't announced it. Said it'd be a game time decision. So you worry a lot about that. If you got your center, your quarterback, and your second running back that started out, it makes you worry about your offensive production. And I just, watching Utah and watching their defense, the speed that they have, it's worrisome. And I think, they don't have any glaring weaknesses that we can try to attack, I don't think. It worries me a lot about them, even though, like I said, they're not a flashy team that you think, oh my gosh, they don't wow you, but they're solid and they're consistent in what they're doing. And it's a little bit worrisome for us. And I think, the key for us is going to be the key that it has been every week, and that is, can our offensive line open up some holes for the running back, and can they protect our quarterback? And, if they can't do that, the 2 games we've lost, they didn't do that. And, If they can do it, we have a chance. If they can't, we have no chance. And Mickey, I'll get your thoughts, and then we'll go back and get our scores.
Well, you covered a lot of it already, Greg. The thing that concerns me the most with Utah is, and Danny Kendra alluded to this, the game, and I'm not saying this just because I played on the offensive line, guys, but I think 80% of the game comes down to the performance of up front between the offensive and the defensive line. Utah's got 5 starters back from last year on their offensive line. These guys have played together for at least 2 years. Some of them played together for 3 years. Both their tackles on the offensive line are projected to be first-round NFL draft picks. So no doubt their biggest strength is going to be in their offensive line. Yeah, they beat, Cal Poly and Wyoming, but who knows how strong those folks are. When they stepped up and started playing, big boy football, Texas Tech, really put it on them last week. So it's going to be a battle that comes down in the trenches. And as you mentioned, Greg, the performance of our offensive line is going to be key. 2 of our offensive linemen, Kimo and Crawford, are projected as questionable this week. When you take a look so far for the season, we have lost 11 offensive players who started the first game. Basically on the offensive side of the ball, we've been pretty well decimated by injuries. Jaheim goes down, and then Ty Edwards is questionable for this week. Sincere Byers had a concussion last week, so doubtful that he'll play this week. Preston Fox is going to be out, they're projecting. So some of our best players, won't be there to help us. So I think the real key to this game is going to be, you hear people talk about next man up. Well, there's going to be some of these players that have not had an opportunity to perform yet that will get a starting role this week. And if they perform well in this next man up philosophy, then I think we have a chance. If they don't, 2 of our offensive linemen graded under 40% last week, where they just, did what I call a flag block or a wave block, where you wave at the runner. One good piece of advice that my offensive line coach used to give me that I'll pass on to any of the Mountaineers that are listening. He used to always tell me, he said, Plumlee, if you're going to miss the rush on that defensive lineman and you see he's going to get to the quarterback, he said, I want you to lay down. And when you fall down, he said, I want you to fall down face up. I said, well, why is that, Coach Twig? He said, well, I'm hoping he'll get his cleats caught in your face mask. So hopefully we won't get into a situation like that this week. But, yeah, we've got our work cut out for us this week, and it's all going to depend on how the next man up does.
All right, Frank, you want us to go ahead and do our scores, and then let Danny throw in his 2 cents worth on the score?
Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to, again, as bad as it hurts me, I'm going to do what I did last week. I hate to, but I got to pick against the Mountaineers in this one. I trust the gamblers. Usually, if you watch these games, these gamblers seem to always be right somehow. And not the gamblers, but the odds makers. They're the right ones. The gamblers are the losers. But I'm going to say that Utah is going to win this one, and probably handily. I just worry so much about our quarterback situation and our offensive line situation. I think we're going to have a hard time scoring, and I think our defense will be on the field way too much like they were last week. And after a while, they're going to cave and give up some points. So I'm going to say 36-21 Utah. Don't hate me, Mountaineer fans.
Hey,
what's their score?
You're in the lead, so you're the king of the hill. Mickey, do you want to go next?
Sure. And this is the first time that I've done this on this show, but yeah, for the first time, I'm gonna be predicting a Mountaineer loss. too many injuries, too many questions on the offensive line. I've got it Utah 35, the Mountaineers 17.
Hey, Mickey, I think you're playing like you've been watching too much Price is Right. You're that guy that goes in there and bids $1 or bids $1 under the guy's amount so you can win.
Hey, Craig, I had that written down before you gave your numbers. I had it written down.
You know I can't see that. All right, Frank, your shot.
Greg, when you make baseless, you're making a baseless assertion. I pick Utah 34, West Virginia 18.
Wow.
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Family Feud.
No, I just thought I'd throw that in there. I got Mickey 1 point. No, I actually am going to pick West Virginia to pull it off. I'm going to write it down right now. 20, what do I have it? 28-27. And I'll tell you why. I think this is the kind of team that's going to surprise you when you think they can't do it. And then, it's going to be rise up and win. And then, just keep your fingers crossed the next week. Utah has to have this game. Your analyses, guys, are really spot on. I mean, there's no question the offensive line is a key. I think Jalen Henderson is going to play no matter what, because you could tell that by the time that Nico decided to run, the play was over. In fact, I looked at data actually by Mike Kazaza from Ear Sports, and where we are ranked nationally, I won't even read the numbers because it shows what our weaknesses are. Anyway, I'm going to say 28-27. My hope is that the tight ends can get in the game, that Henderson can run. Our defense stays reasonably taut. Time of possession is really important. And let's just hope that Vaughn can get some grabs.
Yeah. Yeah, but I hope you're right. I'm pulling for you to win this week. All right, Dan, if you want to throw in your 2 cents, Lori Fawn.
I'll tell you right now, West Virginia wins on a last-second field goal as clock runs out 30-27. Scores tied. Right. They kick a field goal 30-27. The ghost of Bill McKenzie lives, and we kick a field goal to win. And they're going to show it on TV, and then people are going to go like, this is a huge upset. So West Virginia wins 30-27 on the last play of the game.
All right. That sounds good too. So hopefully you or Frank will win this week. I'm rooting for you guys. That's awesome. Dan, thank you so much for, and don't leave us, hang on after the show's off. I want to talk to you a little bit more, but thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It was so much fun sitting listening to the stories and your memories of your days at WVU. It was awesome to listen to you. I know the audience appreciated it and enjoyed it as much as we did. Mickey, thank you for jumping in here with us. We always enjoy having you on. Frank, as always, a great job. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. We want to remind everyone next week we'll have Terry Bowden on the show. That'll be a lot of fun, I'm sure. We've had Tommy on. That was a blast. So I know having Terry on is going to be fun as well. So make sure you, young looking guy. Make sure you tune in for that
graduation picture.
That's all he would send us, I think, wasn't it, right?
Actually, that picture was taken last Friday at the Department of Motor Vehicles down in Alabama.
That's AI. That ain't real. That's AI.
All right, so tune in, friends. It'll be a lot of fun. Also, Saturday, we will have our pregame show. And Frank, the time on that, I can't see it. I forgot.
Yeah, it's 2:00. So it will be 2 to 3. It'll be Greg and Frank. We ask you to tune in. A lot of fun. It's live, but it's also archived. But join us live. It's interactive with you. We make sure we feature your comments.
Yep. Also, as well, after the game, we have a post-game show. We usually start that 20 to 30 minutes after the game ends, and we'll be on just to look back at it and talk a little bit about what went on during the game. And again, we like to have people's insights and their comments. So again, it's interactive. So make sure you jump in there and throw a question or a comment at us. We always enjoy that. So
and we're very happy to have Mickey's teammate, Randy Flincham.
Yep.
Tight tackle.
Yep.
So Randy's going to be with us in studio on Saturday after the football game.
Yep, that'll be a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to that. Hope you are too. For all the guys that joined us tonight, we appreciate you, and we appreciate you for tuning in. We look forward to coming to you Saturday with our Mountaineer pregame show. So have a great evening, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week, and let's go Mountaineers.
All right.